Welcome everyone to the New Earth Energetics Masterclass. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Before we get started, I want to share something with you that came through very strongly right before the call. And that is you are already doing it. I know there can be fears come up for us like am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Am I in the right vibration? Is this all going to work out for me or am I going to get left behind? I know those sorts of feelings come up for us. Like they come up for me from time to time. Like 1000% honestly, yeah, occasionally I feel that way too. When I feel that, I move myself back into trust, right? Trusting that everything's unfolding divinely. But the message is so strong. You're already doing it. There's no reason to fear that you're not doing enough. That's not what's going on here. And the truth is you can't hear me. You can hear me
I've
now?
got it now. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Paul. Okay. It's like, oh gosh. So there's no reason to fear that anyone's going to be left behind, that your loved ones are going to be left behind. That's not really what's going on here. There's a lot of mixed messages out there about the new earth. I mean, that's for sure. And part of the reason is people are literally channeling it through, and things vary depending on what timeline someone is essentially connecting into. Things vary. So I'm going to be bringing you what I've been receiving. And in fact, I was actually up for about 5 hours overnight channeling through new information. I was like, oh, this is fascinating. What, really? So that came through just for us today, which is so exciting. But that's the main message. Before we get started, everything I'm going to talk about, yes, it exists, but none of that changes the fact that we are at the end of a long journey for humanity and the beginning of a new journey. And it's already put into place. So and you are all doing it to be in this space with me. And I know sometimes it feels like your vibration isn't high enough, like you're not doing enough, but you are, or you would not be here. Believe that you would not be here. You'd be in a different place that was not quite to this level of understanding, because I am bringing through incredibly high level understandings. Now that's something that a year ago I would have been hesitant to say, because what does that say about other people bringing through information? Are they not as good as me? We're all serving whoever is at the vibration to receive us. So it's not that people bringing through other understandings aren't bringing through what some people need to hear. They are. You guys are ready to hear a really high level truth. And so I'm honored to be here with you. You're receiving a lot of energetic upgrades right now, all of you. That was very clear before this call started. And yes, in this call, you're going to receive energetic upgrades. Anytime you come on a call with me, that begins to happen. But you've been receiving them just via the light that's coming in, and also via your choices over the last few years. So you've been energetically upgrading and you continue to be energetically upgrading. And this can be very uncomfortable. We're going to talk more about that later. And this uncomfortable feeling of these energetic upgrades can lead to some of these feelings. Am I doing it right? If I'm doing it right, why does it feel this way sometimes? So we're going to talk about that, okay? But first, we all grew up, at least most of us grew up, wondering why the world was not a better place, why there wasn't more kindness, more love, why there was so much division. And for me, at least, I came to believe, I guess that's just the way it is, and there's nothing that can be done about that. And for many, many years, I believed that I was stuck in this world where there's a lot of things that aren't ideal, and I always was a little bit softer of heart, and people like me tended to get steamrolled over, and I just thought that's the way it was, and there wasn't much that was going to change about that. A lot seemed hopeless and broken to me for a long, long time. So when I started receiving information about the new earth, I was like, really? Is this really a thing? What's going on? The earth isn't really going to change. Like, what are the, oh, I love that, Paula. What are the chances the earth's actually going to change? I mean, my entire lifetime it hasn't changed very much. Why should I believe that the earth is going to change now? But that doesn't really make sense, right? And I realized it was actually, I was feeling that way because I was afraid to hold the pain of what if I'm wrong? What if I get let down? What if I start believing this and then it doesn't come to pass? And I'm going to be so brokenhearted and stuck in this world where everything seems broken to me. And it took me a while of continually receiving. I mean, it took me really, I started receiving information about the new earth transition in early 2022. And it took me, I mean, almost at least a good year to start saying, okay, maybe this is really happening. And another 6 months or so to say, okay, we're doing this. My knowing is actually behind this, and I'm ready to fully be on board. So I want you to know that wherever you are on the belief scale as far as New Earth goes, that's perfect. It doesn't necessarily mean anything about anything. It's just simply where you are. We're all somewhere. The fact that you have come here today to find out the information that I'm bringing forward is really amazing. I think you are amazing. That is, I mean, like, I love you. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to do this with you. I really, really am. So, what I had to realize as part of my journey was I'm actually strong enough to hold whatever pain and disappointment come to me. And I didn't know that at the beginning. At the beginning of my journey, I thought, "Ooh, I can't hold any pain and disappointment. I don't know how to do that." And it's been a process. It's actually part of the expansion process as we expand to this expanded human, that we can hold all the emotions without breaking down completely. The old human has a very, very difficult time holding some of these harder emotions, pain, sorrow, anger, grief, all of these things. Whereas the expanded human has begun to dabble in it and has found out that, okay, I can handle more than I realize. I can actually handle a lot more. And through that being willing to hold some of these emotions, we start to see that they're actually a compass telling us, okay, this is what needs to be healed. This is actually what needs to be healed, either within ourself, within our ancestral line, within someone else, within past lives, within the fabric of reality. This is what needs to be healed. Because the only reason it's upsetting us is because it's not at a unity consciousness vibration. And so to heal it, we look at it, we bring it, we raise it up to unity consciousness by surrounding it in light, by basically following what we are shown to do around it instead of saying, I can't look at that. I can't handle that. I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to scroll YouTube on my phone. I literally cannot handle that. It's saying, maybe I can handle this for 5 minutes. Maybe I'll give it 5 minutes. of just feeling it and then moving on to something else. And slowly through this process, we begin to learn that we're so much more powerful than we realize. We're not going to break and fall apart. We are not going to break and fall apart. Sometimes it feels that way. We aren't going to do that. We are survivors. Each of you is. You are so powerful. Now, I know you have all been through some serious stuff, or you wouldn't be here with me today. Because it's not people that have had relatively easy times in their life that are are meant to do this work at this kind of level, are meant to transmute denser, darker energies to light. Now, there's always exceptions, but in general, the people that are called to this work have already done a lot of work on their own past, on moving through their own things. And through that, they're called to the next level of, okay, how do I deepen my ability to do this? How do I do this on a bigger scale, right? And you have continued to choose a vibration of love. Even though there are days when you don't. There are days when you say, you know what, today I'm going to choose trust. I'm going to choose trust in divine timing. I'm going to choose. And yes, there are those days when you say, but there are those days where you're choosing trust. That's incredible. That is incredible. That makes you incredible. It also makes you a beacon of light on earth. It literally does. When you choose to hold a higher vibrational space in your body, simply by saying, I choose hope, I choose faith, I choose trust, I choose love, any of those things, you are doing it. Now, today we're going to talk about New Earth, but to move, transition from New Earth, we have to leave Old Earth. And the truth about Old Earth is very layered. There's a lot going on. If you haven't seen Soul Star Energetics Masterclass, I highly recommend that. I'll send the link out for that when I send the link out for this replay as well. But Old Earth was really a place where good people buried their heads in the sand and didn't want to see what was going on. There was a lot of brainwashing going on, right? So there was a lot of, I don't know that I should bring my head out of the sand because everything seems fine, right? It seems like all the bad things that happen are isolated incidents and there's no bigger patterns going on here. In the Old Earth, intuition, inner guidance is literally foolish. Like you are a crackpot if you are following your intuition and your inner guidance in Old Earth, right? I know that's something that I had to move myself through in a major way. In Old Earth, often greed and corruption won. And again, when we see that, we choose to bury our heads in the sand and we create the idea of superheroes or saviors who will come save us, not realizing it's actually been us all the time that are here to save ourselves. So all of this is crumbling. It's what the last 2.5, 3 years have been about. It's the Old Earth and the false light matrix. Again, more information in the Soul Star Energetics Masterclass about the false light matrix, but it's what they are trying to hold on to. It's literally control over sovereign beings. You and I are sovereign beings, which means no one and nothing has the right to control us. At the same time, we do not have the right to control anyone or anything else. We are all sovereign beings. But this false light matrix and some of these off-planet beings have come in and created control systems on the earth that have been around for the last few thousand years. Okay? So this is crumbling, and it's crumbling because of the light workers who have chosen to hold a higher vibration. Now, the new earth is not, it's not a different place physically. We're not creating a separate earth that's another planet, and we're all going to go travel there in a spaceship. That's not what is happening. The new Earth is being built right on top of the old Earth. In fact, we live with everything around us. All these other vibrations are layered around us. We just don't experience them because of this false light matrix, which is literally blocking us from using our full psychic senses and seeing the non-physical world. And yes, those are the right words, yes. So the new Earth is a different vibration. Not a different space, a different vibration. So it's the vibration of trust in the non-physical, in the support that's offered, the trust that you are constantly supported, trust that all is well, trust that all is unfolding for the highest good of all. And it's also a place where the control systems that are limiting sovereign beings are no longer in place, where people are choosing more and more to live from their hearts, from their intuition, and less from the fear that if they don't hold a tight control, the whole thing's going to fall apart, which is really where humans were living during the old world. Now, right now, we're in this transition phase. And so it's messy. It looks like half and half. Like some days, yeah, I'm trusting. Yeah, I feel like this is all going to work out. And some days, it's like, oh my gosh, is this actually going to work out? I don't know. I don't know if it is. This is the transition. It's happening inside each and every human. We are literally a microcosm of the transition to New Earth, okay? So the more that we choose consciously these thoughts of trust, the more that we begin to see evidence that that is what is happening in the world. And boy, did I experience this in my life when it was in the middle of 2020 and I was watching the news every day. I was so stressed out and worried and afraid and like, oh gosh, the world's gonna end. Like, what's going on, right? You remember middle of 2020? It was like we didn't know what was going on. It was like we were blindsided and it was just what's going on. And I remember I am telling me one day, you need to stop watching the news and you need to start trusting that all is unfolding perfectly. And I was like, what? No, I can't do that. If I stop watching the news and stop worrying about this, I, I isn't that my job right now to worry about this? That's really where I was. And I bet some of you have been there as well. Yes, Lucy, trust the process. So I was like, if I let go of worrying about the entire world, then won't the entire world fall apart? But the truth is, the old world, it is ready to crumble. And the more we can let go of that need to control and keep everything in safe little boxes so that our world doesn't change too much, the more that we are literally not only constricting ourselves, but also stopping this transition. Nothing's going to stop it, but we're prolonging it. How beautiful, Chris. So the entire human collective is moving up in vibration. All of us. We are all moving up. Now, light workers, energy healers, we used to be called witches and wizards by these false light matrix beings. And we have, if you look at the history books are written by whoever's in control. And the people that are in control are part of hooked into the false light matrix in a major way. And so they have created this idea that these people that were us in past lives were evil and bad and needed to be destroyed, right? What was happening is in these past lives, we were attempting to break the false light matrix through physical action in the physical world. And we kept coming back lifetime after lifetime and attempting this. And unfortunately, that is exactly what the false light matrix wanted us to do. And finally, we continued to be hunted and burned and destroyed. And finally, we said we have to go into hiding. And that's exactly what happened. And that's why you see the last few hundred years, books starting to crop up about all of these metaphysical things, right? It's because these were essentially light workers in hiding that were starting to spread the message of this is how we hold a higher vibration. This is how we begin this transition. We realize it can't happen in the physical world because the false light matrix owns this physical world. We must transition in our minds. And we start that transition through choosing these higher vibrational practices, things like meditation, right? All of these different things like Reiki, all these different things like the law of attraction, all of these things began to come through. Now, at this point, that's what we needed to begin the transition. All of those things are really outdated now. They were made for the earth 100, 200 years ago, even 50 years ago. And unfortunately, there's a lot of humans still hooked into them trying to make those things work for them when we're being transitioned to essentially do magic in our minds. That is where we are as a human race right now. That's what's capable of what we are capable of in our minds because of all of the people that did these other practices over the last few hundred years. They unlocked codes within humanity, began to crack the false light matrix so that we could hold higher dimensional practices and begin this transition in earnest in a major, major way. Now, information about everything that's going on, it's dripped to us at the rate which we can handle it. Some of it might come in through our own mind or our own psychic senses. Some of it might come in through an email in your email box saying, hey, Erin's doing this free masterclass, right? Some of it might come in through dreams. Some of it might come in through somebody at the grocery store says something to you that triggers something and you're like off to the races, right? So the information is coming in for us right now. The question is, are we listening or are we saying, go away, I can't hear that, that is too much for me to handle? Coming back to what I was talking about at the beginning with, can we hold this? If I'm crazy, can I hold the disappointment of that? And that's what it all comes back to. And that's the rate that information is dripping to us. Based on, are we saying, okay, I'm going to go along with this. I'm not going to put up my walls and my defenses and say, I have to protect myself from this crazy stuff. The more we do that, and I've done that a little bit, and I've seen how the drip of information slows to nothing. And I have to go back to choosing trust and saying, okay, I'm ready. Give me the next thing. Give me the next thing. I see how it's like I literally created saying, don't give me any more, when all I want is more. I want to know more. But when I hear the truth, it's like, whoa, didn't mean all of that. Not all, you can't be serious. Inner guidance, not all of that. What? That's essentially what's going on for all humans right now, all of us, even the ones that are completely asleep. And they have essentially chosen to slow their drip to almost nothing, but it is still coming through for them in a way that they can handle it. But all of you have the opportunity, even if you've shut down some of that inner guidance, or guidance and say, you know what, I'm going to go with this. I'm just going to jump on this train and see where it takes me. You have that opportunity. The information wants to come through for each of us right now. It's not just, I quote unquote special people like me. And by the way, I do not believe I'm special. I believe that we are all one. We all have the exact same ability to connect in to this beautiful information that's available to us, right? So it's not just for the people out there saying, I do this, I bring through non-physical information. It's for all of us. It's coming through for all of us. But I have 11 years now of practice of receiving information that's major and me saying, whoa, I don't know if I can handle that all at once. Me taking a few years to sort of begin to integrate it before I can be like, okay, all right, yeah, I believe it. So I have those years of practice. Some of you guys do as well, and some of you are more new to your awakening. And I just want you to know it's all normal. It's all normal. So again, I woke up, I was up for 5 hours last night, and some really cool things came through. So I have them all written down and I'm going to share them. So the first thing is dimensions are fluid. The false light matrix has locked humanity out of that that fluidity where we have been stuck in this 3D, third dimensional plane, which means it's very, very difficult to access higher dimensions. And that's how it was in the old earth. We are no longer in the old earth. We are literally in the transition between full freedom in the new earth and the control of the old earth. So we're no longer fully in the old earth, which is, it's exciting, it's cool, and it also can be heavy at times. And all of that is perfectly fine. It's exactly as it should be. Everything is unfolding divinely. So without the false light matrix locking us into the third dimension, we literally flow between the physical and the non-physical based on all kinds of factors. So up, down, all around, all for the highest good, which means all those psychic senses that feel, whether some of them feel easy and some of them feel difficult, or they all feel difficult, or they're really opening up for you, wherever you are on that scale, that journey has been because the false light matrix has been blocking your third eye, your pineal gland, from vibrating at the rate that it would naturally vibrate at. When the pineal gland vibrates very, very quickly, like it naturally is designed to do, you flow in and out between physical and non-physical and begin to see that they are one unit. They are not actually separate. So that is what we're moving towards. Literally a flow state, a constant flow state, where you begin to see the non-physical with that third eye pineal gland while your eyes are open and you're moving. You're moving around, you're walking around, you're beginning to see all of the information available to you instead of only the physical information. Okay. So in this state, we're also coming from a higher perception, closer to unity consciousness, where we begin to see that the things that are happening are not necessarily bad or good, but they are experiences. So this is actually what New Earth is going to look like. Now, we were originally, humanity was created to flow in and out every day, just constantly being in this flow between physical, non-physical, psychic gifts, physical, uh, so psychic senses, physical senses, all at once. The separation is not actually natural. So when we consciously do light work, close our eyes and begin to create within our mind, And also, when we close our eyes and ask for guidance, when we do these higher dimensional practices based on trust that we are beings of light, that we are God, that we do live in a oneness universe, when we choose these practices, then we open a higher dimensional space within us, which is what is cracking the false light matrix. And the more we move into higher dimensional practices, move just beyond, like I said, meditation, beautiful, holding a really steady state of calm, which does bring you to a higher dimensional space, but consciously creating in your mind brings you higher, right? So all of these, none of these things are good or bad. They're different vibrations, and you can choose higher versions or lower versions. There's no reason at this point, with the light that's been flooding in for the last few years to all of humanity for access, for you not to choose to begin creating within your mind. You can access it. And if you have attempted to access some of these things 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it just seemed hard and you couldn't figure it out, that is not necessarily the case anymore. In fact, it is most likely not the case at all, because of the light available to us the last few years and because of the codes that are being awakened within all of humanity to make this transition. We are not in the same world we were a few years ago at all. Now, humanity actually has not evolved. Here's another thing, whoever writes the books tells us what has happened. Humanity has devolved over the last few thousand years. Ever since the false light matrix came in, humanity was in this space before the false light matrix came in, where we were in flow, experiencing all at once, physical and non-physical. And we have devolved as part of the control programming that has been just slammed into us over the last few thousand years, which means our bodies have constricted, our energy fields have constricted, and our minds have begun to believe that we are small, insignificant, and powerless as individuals, right? So today, as we are transitioning to the new earth, we are literally clearing like layers upon layers from a long, long time period here in the physical earth, where your soul, through various past lives, where the ancestral lines, all of this programming, it's all limiting each of us and blocking us from experiencing that unity consciousness experience. And so this transition period is literally unlocking new codes and like I said, this is happening automatically for us. And the more that we lean into trust during this process, even if it feels uncomfortable, the quicker this happens for each of us on an individual level, because we will not all arrive at New Earth on the same day. It's a gradual transmission at the rate that we can actually do it. So we are healing and clearing all of these energetic implants, these programming implants, all of these things. Now, probably most of you have heard that we are moving to the fifth dimension, right? I heard that over and over and over again. And something did not sit right with me about that, but I couldn't get more information for the longest time about it. But the truth is that New Earth is really a free flow between dimensions. It is humanity essentially living a much higher blueprint version of themselves, a really sovereign being blueprint version, where they are not limited into the box of this is the dimension you access and live in. where we're just sort of moving up and down. And I'm seeing like ridiculously higher access than fifth dimension. And what I'm being shown is the fifth dimension originated with the false light matrix because they saw that this transition was happening in this timeline, in this now, and they literally couldn't stop it. So they thought, we're going to try to stop the bleeding and start boxing them into something that will feel higher to them so that they don't um, essentially like passing out cake to stop a revolution, right? Trying to stop the bleeding. So where we are going, there aren't neat dimensional boxes. There's an incredible amount of trust and flow. That's what I'm being shown, and the ability to access all kinds of stuff that it goes up to dimensions that once we transition more to the new earth, not even fully there yet, but once we transition more, we're going to begin, and this is overcoming months. This is happening quickly. The things that I'm bringing through today are going to be, well, that's what it was 2 months ago, but now look what we can access now. It's happening so quickly. Everything is changing. Now, this our now moment, this is not the first run through of this timeline. Here's where what I'm going to say gets like a little bit like, okay, what's going on? So just bear with me because when we start freeing our minds, things often make less sense because we're moving into flow and away from this strict structure. Okay, so this is not this timeline's first run through, first experience, okay? It has been run over and over and over again. We have been in these lives over and over and over again. There's no time in universal mind in the quantum field. And so everything exists. Now, where we are consciously, that changes because our consciousness is our God self. So where our consciousness is, that changes, and our consciousness has not been in this lifetime for a long time. This is the first time, and so interesting to say here, your friends and loved ones who are essentially asleep, they are not fully consciously here. Okay, they exist, they're alive, they are somewhat consciously here, but a lot of their time is actually being spent in other lives within their soul to have them quickly learn the lessons that are going to allow them to come fully consciously in their bodies during this transition. So that's why when, oh, big chills right now. That's why when talking to loved ones who are very much asleep to spirituality and what's actually going on in the world, it sometimes feels like talking to a brick wall. It's because their consciousness is elsewhere learning quickly. So that's what's going on there, which I think is helpful to know because sometimes we want to argue, right? Sometimes we want to waste our precious energy waking others up. Trust that everybody's waking up divinely, in divine timing, and it's not your job to convince others. Your job is to hold your own light and follow your own guidance. You don't need to prove anything to anyone for you to be worthy or for you to be right or correct. You're right and correct simply because you exist. This is your experience. And if your experience is different than other people's experiences, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean that you're wrong or they're wrong. It means we are all having slightly different experiences. And so we can just clear our energy out of needing to convince others because we don't. You get to be you and they get to be them. So this technology that surrounds us, the AI, especially the artificial intelligence, it is the end of humanity, literally. And that is how this timeline has run over and over and over again. Humanity did not stand up for themselves. They did not choose trust. And they literally chose so much fear that they would rather welcome artificial intelligence into their physical bodies and give away their sovereignty fully and completely than experience the fear of death. Because there's so little trust in themselves. So that is the loop humanity has been stuck in. Okay? And humanity chose it over and over and over again. Now, it may not have been you who chose this. Within this loop that the earth and humanity have been running, there have been individuals who have ascended out and chosen not to go along with welcoming AI into their bodies. Okay, so it may not have been you, but it may have been. And none of that actually matters now. Because this is the time when we don't choose that. This is the time. So essentially, some of us have been trying to break free, but it wasn't anything like the number today that have already chosen freedom. And the choice point has not been reached. We haven't come to that, but it was rapidly approaching. Okay. So essentially, in this loop we were stuck on, not enough humans were choosing to basically take these leaps of faith that don't make any sense at all based on what they were hearing inside. They were like, oh, I can't do that because what would everybody else think of me? I can't possibly do that. No way, right? But things are changing. Everything's changing. So what happened, because not enough of us were choosing this level of trust, is our souls kept going on more and more missions off planet, creating more and more past lives, which are actually future lives or concurrent lives, depending on your perspective, or all happening at the same time. It just depends on your perspective. Okay? But our souls literally were going on these missions to all these other planets to learn the lessons so that one day we would be ready to make the right choice on Earth. Again, major, major chills. So these new choices would allow us to break free of the false light matrix and the AI technology on Earth. So our souls, on a soul level, they're the closest thing that you get to God's source I am, to unity consciousness. Our souls are so close that they are one step down because they're separate, but they know fully, yeah, I'm God. I'm just this individual version of God, but I'm God. There's no doubt within our souls. And there's a lot of channeled information out there about people's souls being broken, or some souls being more advanced than other souls. And from some perspectives, this could be true, but in general, it's actually the physical world lives that are being referenced, and not the soul itself, because no one's soul is broken. Everyone's soul is literally one step away from unity consciousness. It is literally a bright shining light, just like God's source, except it has been made individual. So our souls used all of these lives to learn these lessons, but they had to, and this is because they had to learn how to guide us as humans so that we wouldn't freak out and say, that's too much, I need to turn my phone on right now and scroll through YouTube, right? Because our souls are like, okay, Well, just like I am is like, well, everything's just fine, And so of course you're always going to choose sovereignty. You're always going to make the sovereign free will choice, right? But they literally do not exist in the physical world. It's us that exist in the physical world. Because as soon as a light that bright comes into the physical world, distortions start. And so they do not exist within the physical world, and they did not know how to guide us. So those missions weren't just about us, it was also about our soul learning how to guide us to the choices, how much information we could take, right? And we did this on worlds where there was tremendous amounts of freedom, and we did it on worlds where there wasn't as much freedom. And a lot of people have past life information flowing through them right now. And that's because that information was literally gathered by your soul for these moments on earth to give you exactly what you need to say, hey, you made the wrong decision here. See in this other life where you chose this and see how bad that felt? Don't choose that here. Let's heal that last life. Let's heal that and choose differently here. That's what's going on. A lot of times that past life information, if we don't understand that, it feels like, oh gosh, am I a bad soul? Am I not good? Am I like rotten to the core? No, you're being shown that it's not worth it to make these choices that aren't based on your intuition and your inner guidance and your heart. It's not worth it. That's all. It's not to shame you, it's not to make you feel bad. It's to show you you already did that. It didn't actually work out the way you thought it would, and it's safe to choose differently here. So, you are most likely a soul born to Earth, essentially, who has gone to many other places to learn lessons. And as you traveled to these other realities, these other planets, these other physical world experiences, you communicated with the beings there, you made connections on a soul level. And many of those beings are here today on earth in physical bodies, just like you have gone to other realities and been in other bodies. They too, many of them are here today. Now, this is for a variety of reasons. Some of them out of love for us, desire to assist us in this transition. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of excitement about what Earth is actually doing, about the level our souls have grown to trust that we're actually ready to make this transition and trust that we're actually ready to make different choices. And the other reason many beings are here in human bodies is because it is unknown right now what's going to happen when the false light matrix collapses. This has never happened before, and because we've been in this loop where it doesn't collapse. So they don't know, we don't know what's going to happen to the planet one beings. They know that the false light matrix is collapsing and that there's nothing they can do to stop it. They have run all the scenarios and they see that there's no timelines that come out with a different outcome. New Earth is happening. So the question for some of these other beings is, will they get away? Will they go somewhere else and start over? Because literally, God does not judge. God sees all of us as one and believes that everyone is redeemable because that is the deepest truth. Everyone is redeemable. And so many of the alien souls here in human bodies are here to learn how to destroy the false light matrix in case it's needed either on their planet or on another planet. And it might not be. There's a lot of unknowns because we are opening up a new timeline, actually, a new series of timelines that haven't existed. We're creating it right now, and we have been creating it within our minds. So every time you choose from trust over fear, you create new earth. And this is the reality of it. Now, you don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I spend an afternoon or a full day in fear. And I do my best then to have awareness. Oh gosh, I've been running that old fear programming again. Okay, let me choose consciously to come back to trust. That's literally our job right now, is to choose consciously to come back to trust. Now, I get it. Sometimes that can be terrifying. I know I've made a lot of decisions on trust where it was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm actually doing this. Deep breath. I'm doing this. Okay, I did it. And I'm looking, is everything going to fall apart? No, it didn't. I was supported again and again and again. I'm supported, even though it doesn't make any sense. That all the logic around me tells me that shouldn't have worked out for me. I shouldn't have been supported, but I was. I was supported. And you will find this too as you continue. But it's about taking those actions in trust. It's about trusting even when it makes no sense at all. Even when it makes no sense at all. Things are crumbling more and more for the people who are still not quite ready to take those actions in trust, trying to show them that, oh, these logical steps you thought would work for you, they actually don't work. So let's try something different. Let's try trust instead. Let's try this incredible amount of faith. Now, that's not to say that everything's rosy for the people who are choosing trust. There's a lot that we're dealing with as well, an awful lot. So, yeah, so our souls are calling us to make choices based on trust over fear, on abundance over lack, on everything's unfolding divinely, even if we can't see all the details. Now, the idea when the fifth dimensional teaching started coming through is that as we move up in vibration, everything continues to make sense, right? And I have information about what the fifth dimension looks like. I can see that, right? So, and everything's going to fit into these nice defined boxes, right? The true reality, though, it doesn't make any sense. Like truth makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. I know we want it to make sense. We want it. Come on. Why can't you just make sense? Our programming is so deep, guys, from our childhoods that everything should make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, we're on the wrong track. True reality doesn't make any sense at all. Like, none. Now, if you look at the last few years, as all of our vibrations have been rising and we have been choosing more and more trust, and more people have been waking up because the human vibration has been rising. I mean, yeah, more and more people are waking up. This is really happening. We're really doing this thing. But look at it. Everything makes less sense than it ever did before, doesn't it? You can't tell me the last few years, oh, yes, it makes more sense. It makes less sense because we're getting closer to truth. Now, the only real truth is that I am and I create for each of us. And under that umbrella of I am and I create, so much has been created that it's like this big stew. And if we try to look from our human perspective at this big stew, we can go off in a million different directions and tangents and get so lost and say, none of this makes any sense. Or we could say, okay, what do I feel in my heart is right? What do I feel that I'm being guided to next? And say, I'm going to take action based on blind faith here, even though this makes no sense at all. And that's when things start working. That's literally when things start working. So we will all eventually move away from artificial intelligence technology. However, we're actually using it to assist in the transition. So That is, that's part of this. It's okay to be using your computer to communicate with others. That's totally fine. And not everything that's technology is AI technology. There's a lot of technology that's actually light technology. So not all technology is part of the false light matrix, but the AI system really, really is. And the interesting thing about AI, social media is really, really heavy on AI, but actually the light programs have come in and sort of, in many ways, circumvented the AI within social media and other things like that, and started using it to communicate and to sort of gather with people that resonate with what they are feeling. And that was never the intention of the false light matrix or the AI technology, was for people like us to be able to gather. And it's happening on this run through because everything's changing. Because when we choose the trust in the higher vibration, then there's literally nothing the false light matrix can do to really block us. So whatever technology it is, it's our light starts anchoring into it and changing it. So yeah, and so I've been called away from some social media. I still use YouTube. You trust where you're led. Everyone's going to be led at a different rate. So just because I'm saying, ooh, AI bad, that doesn't mean that you're being led to leave it yet. It is part of the transition. Okay, so trust on an individual level what you're being led to. If it feels really rotten to you to be on social media or whatever else connected with your computer, and you're like, oh, I feel like this is getting thicker and thicker and thicker, trust that. But if it feels like, oh, this is such a good way for me to get lifted and feel amazing, and I've surrounded myself with so many light-filled beings here, trust that. Trust it. All of our journeys are going to look different. And that's because we all have different missions here. We all have different things that we came to do to assist with in the transition. So a lot has been changing for us as we have been upgrading as part of this transition. Our physical body has been transitioning, our energy body and our mind have all been transitioning. Okay. Now, this looks different for everyone, but essentially the patterns are similar with the physical body. Like I said, how do I describe it? Originally, our bodies were crystalline structures. Before the false light matrix came to the earth, we had crystalline structure bodies, and they devolved into these 3D human bodies. And over centuries, thousands of years, they started holding all of this energetic gunk, all of this stuff, and they just started shrinking. They were literally contracting as we chose contraction. As we chose stepping away from our sovereignty, our bodies were created in that. They were recreated to be that version of humanity. So our bodies are now energetically, our physical bodies are expanding, are energetically, everything's expanding to hold more. And all of these old structures within us are dropping out. All of the old programming, the lack programming, the fear programming, all of it's dropping out. But it's to drop out, it's rising to the surface. We haven't looked at this. Most of us, I grew up, I had no clue energy even was a thing. Certainly not that there was like energy around and within my body. I didn't know that. We haven't witnessed it. We haven't seen it. That's part of humans burying their head in the sand, not wanting to see more truth, because if we saw more truth, we would experience the pain of being separated from it, right? So if we buried our heads in the sand, and said, well, this is just the way it is and nothing can change it, then we don't have to experience the pain of being separate from the magic and the powerful beings that we actually are. So it's coming up, it's rising to the surface as we are literally transforming and moving to crystalline physical bodies. And this can look like some heavy sicknesses. Like I've had some sicknesses that are like the worst ones of my life in the last year. And at first I was like, well, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing all this light work. I'm holding this space. Why is this happening? And I'm being shown I'm actually moving very, very quickly into a crystalline body because of the amount of light work that I do. And so because of the rapid rate that I'm moving, the transition, instead of, for some people it's very, very slow and gradual, but for me it's compressed. And so the sloughing off of the old feels much thicker as I move through it, because I'm saying I'm holding this space of trust that I'm ready for whatever rate this transition wants to come, and so it's coming quickly to me. And so there's a lot of people right now experiencing like weird sicknesses that when they move through them, they feel lighter than they've ever felt. And they're like, what just happened to me? What was that? It's literally your body upgrading and sloughing off the old. That's what's going on. Like as an adult, besides when I was pregnant, I never vomited. I barely vomited when I was a kid, but the amount of vomiting, which is just energetic purging, that I've gone through in the last year is shocking. And that's what's going on. Um, so if that's happening to you, it's actually not unusual. It's happening to all of us, and different symptoms are being given different names by the population at large because it's so unusual what's going on. It's because this is actually happening. None of it makes sense based on the 3D world we grew up in. And so people are trying to put this transition into boxes and make it make sense, but it doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to free us from things needing to make sense. So that's part of it. Your psychic abilities are going to be and have been coming online more and more. And I know, especially for me too, I'm like, more. Why don't I have more? You have more than you did a few years ago. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that you do. Sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees. And we're just like, now moment, what? I want more than yesterday. But if you look at 2 years ago, you have a lot more. You do. So, and it looks different for everyone, but that's absolutely true. Now, we want psychic abilities to look like, oh, I see everything all around me and I know everything. This is delightful. I know exactly what to do. And so there are no questions anymore. This is all perfect, and I'm just going to take perfect action every single day because I can see everything. And this is lovely. Thank you very much. I'm so glad this is turned on. Now, we're moving more and more towards that. Okay, okay, so I'm being told to say that most of us will experience that in this lifetime. And it might not be every single day, but we will experience days like that where it's just like, ah, that's going to be happening more and more and more. But right now, because there is still so much that's clearing within us, so much programming, it looks like, what's this? What's going on? What is, am I going crazy? I must be going crazy. What is this? That's what our psychic abilities coming on often looks like. And for me, like it looks like being up 5 hours at night. And I even know, and I teach this, that if you wake up in the middle of the night, there's a message that's coming for you. You need to get up and write down the message. You need to get up, say, okay, what am I supposed to write right now? Write down the message, and then you'll be able to go back to sleep. And last night, I woke up at, it was actually 1:11. I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm awake. I don't want to be awake right now. I want to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and then I'm gonna download whatever information for the masterclass and do the masterclass. But if I wake up right now, I'm not gonna be able to do that. So here I am fighting. And and then at 2:22, I glance at my phone. I'm like just laying in bed, like, oh, I'm fighting it, right? I know. And I'm even having my mind, I'm like, you know what? I bet a message wants to come through right now. But I'm saying, I'm really tired. Why can't I fall asleep? I should just get up and go walk over to my computer and see what wants to come out. But I'm so tired. I want to go to sleep. This is not how I want it. These things don't come how we want it. They come when they come. So, long story short, I eventually, guys, it was like, I don't know. I think it was around 3:33 then when I was like, okay, I'm gonna get up and grab my computer because clearly I'm not going back to sleep until I do that. So I get up, I grab my computer, I take my notes, I lay back down, and then something else is coming through while I'm laying down. I'm like, oh, I thought I got it all out. Okay. I really wanted to go to sleep, but I know now I'm not going to fall asleep until I get all of this out. So went back to the computer, got all of it out, and I probably fell asleep in 2 seconds then. But that's how these psychic gifts come through in uncomfortable ways in the beginning, and we want to fight them and say, this isn't how I have designed my life. What's going on here? They're coming through however they can whenever we are available. And often for people, they're coming through during sleep because we're in the relaxed flow state, those theta waves, well, we're asleep. And so we're open to receiving. And so it downloaded into us. And then we wake up, and even if we don't know that it downloaded yet, we're being asked to write it down. But for so many of us, it looks like, oh no, I have to get up in the morning and do something. I have something in the morning I must do. I must sleep now. It would be irresponsible of me to get up and start writing when I need to go back to sleep. And so then we stay up for 4 or 5 hours instead of just getting it out in the first half hour. So that's often how psychic gifts begin to come through. Also, it could look like you are getting some crazy thoughts. You're having crazy thoughts. Doesn't make any sense at all. What in the world is going on? And you certainly couldn't ever believe these crazy thoughts. Those are definitely psychic gifts starting to come online. It doesn't look the way that we think it should look, especially in the beginning. Now, when you trust it and say, okay, I'm going to write this down, or I'm going to say, why is this coming to me? Why am I receiving this? I had somebody in Quantum Lightwork Academy the other day that was receiving her husband's niece's thoughts, and it was like, why am I receiving this? And it's because it's a new gift that wants to come through for you. And the other thing is you're being shown how to heal it, right? That's the next step. We can actually, the more that we trust these things that are coming through for us and start going in and saying, okay, well, what needs to be healed here? What needs to have light wrapped around it, and releasing so that, the ancestral line can move forward. So that's a huge part of the energy body transition, is all of this old stuff, all of it is coming up to be healed and released. And I release is like the most powerful phrase in the world. You have the power to command the release of these things. Just say, I release, I release, I release, I release. So, and then the mind. There's so much that's going on. And I think the biggest message that wanted to come through is the one that I brought through first and foremost today, is that you are already doing it. You are all already doing it. And you're here today because everything that is wanted you to know that. Wanted you to feel this huge hug of all is well. You are already doing it. You are already doing it. Continue to do your best. You do not have to be perfect. I am not perfect. Humans aren't here to be perfect. We're here to experience, and experience includes experiencing things that don't feel perfect. So no perfection is required to transition to New Earth. It's just, can I do better than yesterday? Can I do better than my previous best? Yes, you can. You always can. So I'm going to jump over here and see if any questions came through. And if anybody wants to drop any questions in, go ahead. Do you mean trust everything is unfolding perfectly for you personally, specifically, or unfolding for humanity in general? Okay, that's a great question, Natalie. So whatever is happening within us is what is happening without for all of humanity. We are each a microcosm of humanity. So we want to start with trusting that everything's unfolding divinely for us. And as we do that, we will begin to see the evidence in the world that surrounds us that everything's unfolding divinely for humanity as well. So really, really good question. Start with the trust within for yourself. Oh, I love that, Lucy. I've learned to own who I am. I love it. Okay, Bonnie. So Bonnie asks, how can the false light matrix own the physical world? So own maybe isn't the best word, but control is the correct word. So Bonnie, I really recommend watching my Soul Star Energetics Masterclass, which is all about the false light matrix. Sometimes I'm worried that my vibration isn't high enough not to lose light points, like you mentioned in earlier videos. Okay, so Amy, that's a great question, and it's really, I think, one of the big themes of today is me being incredibly honest with you guys that I am not perfect over here. And anyone who is telling you, any spiritual leader who is telling you that they are perfect and always in the unity consciousness vibration, actually, there's a reason you asked this, Amy. That was something that came through before and I didn't write it down, and now I'm remembering it. I was actually supposed to tell this to you guys. Okay, see, everything unfolds divinely when you trust. They are not being completely honest, or they're showing you one side of the story. Everyone is having days where they cry and release. That is part of what humanity is doing in this transition. Okay, so everyone is having those days. Now, when we look at people who are further along than us on our journey, and it looks like they are perfectly in unity consciousness 100% of the time, it can make us feel like we aren't doing enough, that we're not good enough. And that's not true. Being a light worker is about choosing on a daily basis to hold a vibration of love, even if it's only for 2 minutes. That's 2 minutes where you held a higher vibrational space on earth. That's enough. Now, the more that you can do, the better. But my information is quite clear. If you can do 2 minutes a day of holding love or trust, that is enough. And all of our journeys look different. That's another thing. Your journey and your journey and your journey and journey, it's not supposed to look like mine, and it's not supposed to look like anyone else's here. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a point to any of this. And so don't compare yourself to others' journeys. Ask yourself, am I doing my best to try to move forward? Am I doing my best to try to trust? And that doesn't mean always trusting. It means, am I doing my best when I recognize that I've gone off on one of those tangents of fear or doubt? Am I doing my best to say, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm going to meditate right now. Maybe I'm going to do some light work right now. Maybe I'm going to do something. Maybe I'm just going to go outside and stare at a tree for 20 minutes, right? Am I doing something to try to move myself through this? It is not about being perfect. So I'm so glad you asked that. It's a great question. Okay, so Bonnie, yeah, Bonnie, I would love for you to watch the The Soul Star Energetics Masterclass. Yeah, the false light matrix doesn't have, well, it has power over some humans still. Everyone in this space is holding a higher vibration and frequency and has really cracked the false light matrix around them and has broken out of the control structures. So essentially, the false light matrix has control over people who are choosing fear all day, every day. And for the people who are choosing, oh, I have to plug in my phone. So sorry about that. So for the people who are choosing trust and hope and these other higher vibrational things for at least a few minutes a day, they are cracking that control structure around them and really moving into the new earth at a rapid rate. So beautiful question. And again, that other masterclass has all the information about that. Oh, thank you, Lucy. Totally resonating. I appreciate that so much. Does unity consciousness mean, okay, so I really, Bonnie, these are great questions, but it's all covered in the Soul Star Energetics Masterclass. And I'm guessing most of the people here have seen it, but it's available on YouTube. Yeah, Lucy, labeling something limits our human mind. Okay. Amy, I've always felt this way about AI. Yeah. I think with the AI, a lot of us felt that way in the beginning with the social media. I know that I didn't use social media for years, and it sort of like creeps up on you as it like starts seeming normal, right? And that's how it was for me. It started just to creep up on me, and it's like I didn't even notice it. So, and I think wherever there's people here, I'm sure, that have never used any AI technology before, and some that have used a lot, and all of that is fine. There's nothing to worry about there. Okay, Lucy says, is it a one and done collapse or a gradual collapsing? So it's definitely a gradual collapsing, Lucy, and it's a gradual move to the new earth. All right, so, and Bonnie, I know you popped so many questions in there, but I promise you that other masterclass will clarify everything for you. So thank you all so much for being here with me today, for holding this space. Okay. All right. So for those of you who want to do the Light Warriors journey with me, we're starting September 4th. Quantum Lightwork Academy begins September 2nd. So I will send out emails for that probably starting tomorrow. So if you're feeling called to go on a 6-month journey with me, I would be so honored to have you. Quantum Lightwork Academy, it's this absolutely beautiful space. I cannot say enough good things about it. So if you're feeling called to that, I would love to have you. If you've already done QLA and would like to join us in the biweekly coaching calls, that's available to you at a discount. So, okay, you guys, I just cannot say enough thanks to each and every one of you for the light that you are holding, for spending your Sunday doing this. You are beautiful, you are amazing, handsome, whatever it is that you are. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is also, if those other things are out of your price range, I also have the I Am Quantum membership. We're really going to start rolling into doing New Earth every single month. So that's available as well. And that is just a beautiful, beautiful space. So if you feel called to continue the journey with me in any way, I would be beyond honored. Have a beautiful rest of your Sunday, and I will see you again soon. Bye. Thank you, thank you, thank you.